Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, cats and dogs, and freaks of nature of all ages. My name is Brian Bad Hippie Jackson, and welcome to my YouTube. And welcome to episode 1, or part 1, or lesson 1, whatever you want to call it, of my very first creative tutorial series. We're going to be starting the tutorial series with the Unreal Development Kit, UDK. Now, you might be asking, why UDK? Why not UE4? Okay, there's a couple of reasons for that. Of course, UDK and UE4 are both made by Epic Games. UE4 is their newest next-gen engine, and I just recently got my system upgraded to the point that I can actually use UE4, and I haven't learned how to properly use it yet. There's no way in hell I'm going to try to do tutorials in a game engine that I don't understand properly. It would not be fair to you, and the primary reason is I ran a poll on Twitter last week asking you guys what you wanted to see for creative tutorials, and even though I didn't get a whole lot of votes, the votes that I did get were overwhelmingly UDK, so we're going to do that. Now, as far as I know, UDK is still available for free from Epic Games. I will include the link in the description below. If you don't have it, go pick it up, learn how to use it. It is still a AAA quality engine. The Batman Arkham series was built with it. The Gears of War series was built with it. The Army of Two series was built with it. The Bourne Conspiracy was built with it. Life is Strange was built with it. It is a damn good engine. So let's go ahead and get right into this damn good engine. Now, if you've never used it before, when you first open it up, this is what you're going to see, something very similar to this. Now, the big box in the middle is our content browser. The content browser is vitally important, and even though we're not going to be using it yet, we are going to touch on it just to show you how important it is. The content browser contains all of the assets that we will be using. All of the default UDK assets are in here, from static meshes to sounds to textures and materials, all kinds of crap. Anything that we import from an outside program is going to come into the content browser. It also has all of our actor classes, our camera actors, our interp actors, player starts, triggers, decals, fluid, fogs, lights, navigation, pickups, weapons, vehicles. It lets us sort and keep track of our levels. It lets us keep track of absolutely everything that we have in a scene, and it lets us set our layers. So the content browser is absolutely vital, and we will be spending a large amount of time in that. But right now, we're going to get into just some basic stuff. So to start out with, generally we have this one big window, and I will be working in this viewport most of the time. But if you don't like this, you can always go right up here to the Restore Viewpoint button, and you can knock it down into this, which is a 4 split screen. You can drag these windows around, resize them, make them whatever you want to be, and you can also go up in here to the View, go down to Viewport Configuration, and set up your split. I'm working a 2x2 split, but you can also do a 1x2 or a 1x1 horizontal or vertical split. So it's pretty cool like that. All right. So the first thing we're going to touch on before we touch on anything else is basic navigation. Now, I'm going to go ahead and forewarn you, if you watched Bad Hippie's Book of Stupid, episode 1, then you know that on Thanksgiving I broke my arm. And I broke my right arm, and I am right-handed. So I'm trying to do all of this with my left hand, and I'm not used to that. So if you see a hard cut somewhere here and there, it's probably because my left hand went and screwed the pooch, and I did something like resized the window or opened up a menu or something that I wasn't supposed to, and I've edited that out. So a little bit of patience with me and I'll get this. Alright, so basic navigation, if you hold the left mouse button, then you can dolly your camera forward, backward, and you can look left and right. So left mouse button will dolly the camera. The right mouse button will allow you to rotate the camera from a stationary position. Both mouse buttons will allow you to move the camera up, down, left, and right. You can also zoom in and out using the mouse scroll wheel. You can also move around a little bit using the WASD keys. And if you are unlike me and actually have the use of both of your hands, you can use the WASD keys in conjunction with dolly, rotate, and all that kind of good stuff, and it makes things a lot easier to do. So that is the basics of navigation in that big window. The other navigation we need to touch on is when you're in one of the orthographic views, the top down, the side, or something like that. You can zoom in and out with the mouse wheel, of course, but it doesn't matter whether you grab the left mouse button or the right mouse button. You can only move it around up and down and side to side because it is a top, side, or front view. It's an orthographic view, so there is no rotate or dolly or anything like that. So that is the basics of navigation. Now in this first video, we're just basically going to touch on the basics of navigation, and we're going to go over our menu bars real quickly just so we've got an idea of what everything does. Alright, so the next thing I want to touch on, I'm going to move over here so that I'm actually facing north, and I'm going to grab this box, and you see that little red cross thing in the box? That is because I have the selection tool done. Alright, now if I want to do something with that box, I can hit the transition tool and I can move my box up, down, left, or right. Control Z to undo. I can grab the rotate tool and I can rotate said box or whatever I want to with that. Control Z to undo. This is uniform scale, and uniform scale, no matter which one of these I grab, it's going to scale the entire thing uniformly. Alright? Which, you know, depending on what kind of scaling you need, that's good. The scale right next to it is non-uniform scaling, which allows us to scale an object along a specific axis. Okay? Control Z, get it back to where it was. Now, as far as our axis goes, let's go ahead and grab that because arrows are easier to work with. And if you look in the bottom left here, you can see X, Y, Z. It tells you what color is what axis. The green is the Y axis, which since we're pretty much facing north, we're going to say that that is your width. Green is your width or side to side, so your y-axis is side to side or width. Your x-axis is forward or backwards. We're going with north or south being forward or backwards. So x is forward or backwards or your depth, and z is up and down or your height. So y-axis green, left, right, width. X-axis red, forward, back, depth. And z-axis blue, up, down, and height. Now you can also go through your translation, rotation, and scaling widgets by hitting the space bar. The space bar will toggle between those three, but the space bar will not toggle between your selection mode, which just allows you to select something, and it will not toggle non-uniform scale. So I just usually go ahead and use these instead of the space bar because I do use non-uniform scale quite a lot. Alright, now with that said, let's get into seeing what everything else does. Now up here we have a basic, you know, just like about anything else, we've got our basic menu bar. We've got File, Import, Export, Favorites, Recent, and if you want to favorite something, let's say you've saved a level out, you just hit that little star right there and it'll toggle your map as a favorite, and then it'll be in your Favorites menu. We have Edit, View. We will be using quite a bit. It allows us to select attachments, browser windows, things of that nature, actor properties, surface properties, world properties, Unreal Kismet, which we will be using that a lot, Unreal Matinee, we'll be using that a lot. It enables us to set our drag grid, our rotation grid, and our scaling grid. You can also set your drag, rotation, and scaling grid down at the bottom. Right there is your drag grid, your rotation grid, and your scaling grid. This little doohickey down here is autosave. I have it turned off right now, but if you're working on an important project, I would recommend that you turn that on, and with this little drop down right here, you can set what types of packages to autosave and the interval at which they should be saved. But because these are tutorials, I don't want the autosave turned on. Okay, but you can also do that from your view window here. Okay, next we have our brush options: CSG, add, subtract, intersect, specials, volumes. I never ever use that. I do all of my CSG, add, subtract, and stuff there. My specials are there, and my volumes are there. We will be using volumes a whole lot. We have water volumes, scripted bot volumes, kill Z volumes, dynamic water volumes, auto crouch volumes, which is really cool, trigger volumes, post-process volumes, physics volumes, ladder volumes so we can make climbable ladders, blocking volumes. We will be using the volume tool quite a bit. Next we have play, where we can play an editor, play an active viewport. I don't ever use that either, because that little green arrow right there will let us play in the editor window, and the little blue arrow there will let us play in the active viewport. We have the tools, which I hardly ever use. The tools that are in here I can also select from other areas, and I never ever use terrain. I always use landscape, and I'll get into that here in just a minute. Then we have our preferences. Go ahead and play with the preferences, set things up the way you like it, and then of course we have our help bar. Beneath that we have new level. You click on that, you get a new level. That will open an existing level, and you can drop that down to get to your most recent levels. You can also find your most recent levels by clicking File and going to Recent. Over here, of course, that's our favorite, and then we have our different save options: undo, redo. Of course, we've already gone across our selection, rotation, translation. The next one over here is our coordinate system, where we can switch between local and world coordinates. That is find actors, so if we need to find something, we click on that, and then it will bring up all of the actors in our scene, and we can either select it there or we can search for it. The next one is our content browser. Pop that open right there. That's the one I always use. You can also get to the content browser in View and Browser windows. The next one is Unreal Kismet. Unreal Kismet is UDK's node-based visual scripting system, and I absolutely love it because I suck at hard code. I really, really, really suck at hard code, and Kismet is a lifesaver for me. The next one will allow us to open an existing matinee, which is how we do our animation, make things move around and stuff. You can create a matinee in Kismet, and once a matinee is created, then you can open an existing matinee with that. This lets us set our clipping distance. This allows for translucent selection and low quality materials. I hardly ever use that. I usually, I do use the translucent selection because if you've got something that you can see through and you're in a lit or unlit where you see solid geometry, then you cannot select something that is transparent that you can see through. You have to go into a wireframe to be able to select it. But if you have translucent selection turned on, then you can select it in a solid mode. These are our build tools. We will be using them a butt-ton. Primarily we're going to be using build all, but from left to right, the little block is build geometry, the little light bulb is build lighting, the next one is build paths, the one next to it that looks just like paths except it's got red dots is build cover nodes, and the next one is build all. That's the one I use the most often because it will build lighting, geometry, and paths simultaneously. And then the little light bulb that's got the arrow or the eyeball beside it is your lighting quality. We're going to leave it on preview, which is what the eyeball means, but if you click it, you can go to medium, high, or production. M is medium, H is high, P is production, and the little eyeball is, God damn it, see I'm double clicking stuff, is preview. These I really don't ever use except for play level in editor window. Now across our windows here we have this little doohickey. Now this will let you tear off a floating copy of the window at approximately the same size that your window is at. It comes in handy sometimes. This will let you play in your viewport. So if you have an older machine that tends to lag out if you play in a larger screen, then you can go ahead and play it at a smaller size in the viewport, and it will allow you to preview your level and test play it without having to worry about it lagging out so much. Let's go ahead and move over to the left side. If you hit the drop down, you'll find all kinds of options. Wireframe, brush wireframe, your different lighting and stuff like that, your game view, matinee previews, culling distance and occlusion, viewport types, viewport preset sizes, and what you can see and don't see, show this, show that, show the other. And actually I need to turn paths on. I want to be able to see that as well. Alright, the next one is your viewport type, where you can toggle between the different viewports. Right now, let's go ahead and do up this one. T is top, S is side, F is front, and P is perspective. Okay. Now you notice that the perspective view is a bit different than the rest of them because it is the perspective view, and we'll get into that a little bit later as well. All right, this is our different viewport options. This will allow us to look at it in wireframe or brush wireframe. This will allow us to see it in regular wireframe, and there is a difference between the two, but until we start bringing static meshes in, we really won't be able to see that. The next one is unlit, which lets us see solid geometry but without any lighting. Then lit, detail lighting, lighting only, light complexity, texture density, shader complexity, light map density, and lighting only with texel density. The G enables game mode, so let's say that I've got that box selected, or I've got the light mass importance volume selected, the builder brush is there, okay, all those kinds of things. When you hit game mode, it knocks all those things away and lets you get a better preview of what your level is going to look like in game. The little lock will allow you to lock a viewport or lock the camera to the viewport, or will allow you to lock the viewport. The eyeball will allow you to lock the selected actors to the camera. That comes in really handy. We'll get into that when we need it. These are level streaming volume and post-process volume previs, so that you can pre-visualize things a little bit better. And this one is our camera movement speed, where I generally keep it set kind of slow because I don't need it to be fast. But let's say that you're building a massive landscape, then you might want to move the camera speed up a little bit so that you can get places just a little bit faster. I have the tendency to keep it set pretty low. Alright, and then this little guy right here is our real-time preview. So let's say if I move this around, or let's say I grab this box and I move it, you're not going to see the box move in the other windows until I get done moving it. Let's hit Z. But if I turn on real-time preview, then you're going to see the box move in both windows simultaneously. And that's what real-time preview does. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. Okay, so that pretty much covers that little area there. Over here we have modes. Right now we're in camera mode. This little thing will let us get into geometry mode, which will allow us to manipulate constructive solid geometry, or CSG. Then we have the terrain mode, which we will never ever use. What we're going to be using when we do get into building landscapes is the landscape mode, and there are two really good reasons for this. Really good reason number one is this is the newer one. The interface is a hell of a lot more clean, and it's a lot easier to work with. I like it a lot better, but the primary reason is that terrain mode is not compatible with mobile devices. Landscape mode is. All right, that is our texture alignment mode. I very seldom use it. I usually just go ahead and click on the object that I need to adjust the texture on and do it through the dialog window. That's mesh paint mode, static mesh mode, and foliage mode. Now when we start getting into landscapes, we'll be using landscape mode and foliage mode quite a bit. Next we have brushes, and by brushes we mean that red box there, our red builder brush. If you right click on it, then you will come up with options. Let me move this over here so you can see. We can adjust all these properties. For instance, the cube can be resized along the X, Y, and Z very, very accurately with numbers. We can change the thickness of the wall. We can make it hollow if we want to, and things of that nature. If we hit cone, it will change it into a cone, a curved staircase, a cylinder, a linear staircase, a 2D sheet, a spiral staircase, a sphere or tetrahedron, and it looks more like a diamond there, but once again you right click and you have a radius, a sphere extrapolation, the group, so that you can actually pretty much make a good sphere, and then you have cards, which are really good for making low-res bushes and things like that. All right, and all of these are completely editable number, just like the cube was. All right, next we have CSG. So we're going to go set that back to square, and we're going to talk about the difference between CSG and BSP. Now what we have right now with this cube, or this builder brush, is what is known as BSP. It is a binary space partition, and basically all that means is that it is defining that area within binary space, but there's really nothing there. It is just saying this point connects to this point, connects to this point, connects to this point within binary space, but there's nothing there. Once you hit CSG add or something of that nature, it will create a, let me go ahead and move this over a little bit just to show you. If I hit CSG add, it's going to give me a box. That box is now what is known as CSG, constructive solid geometry. So BSP is your binary space partition, which simply defines the points in binary space, and then CSG is the constructive solid geometry, which is something that you can actually interact with. All right. Below that we have volumes. We can add a special brush or the volumes, and I believe I've already touched on that a bit, and we're going to be using volumes quite a bit. Below that is select, where you can hide and unhide and invert selections, and then down at the very bottom we have our go to. So let's say that we're way off somewhere in the distance and we don't know where our builder brush is, or we've got something else selected. We hit go to builder brush and it will take us directly to our builder brush. The other good thing about that is it does that in all 4 windows. So for instance, this little thing that looks like an old Atari joystick is our player start point. But it's not visible in all the windows, but I want it visible in all the windows. I select it, I hit go to actor, boom, and it centers every window on that actor. It's a very, very handy tool. You can also get into the content browser, go to scene, and select whatever you want. Let's say we select static mesh actor 3, and then we hit go to, and it will switch every camera to static mesh actor 3. That way we go to builder brush, select that mesh, go to actor, and it will center that on all of them. God. Okay, so let's go back to builder brush, let's deselect, and let's pull that bad boy open. And that is the basics of navigation and the basics of the interface. Now what we're looking at here is the default daylight scene. If you want to create a new level, you can go to New right there, or File, New Level. Doesn't really matter which one, they both do the same thing. So you create New, and it will bring you up a map template dialog where you have default afternoon lighting, default midday lighting, which is what we're looking at right now, morning lighting, night lighting, or a blank map. And when we come back the next time, we're going to start with a blank map. So I'm not going to save this. We're going to be doing a blank map next time. So what we're going to be doing in the next episode is we're going to start building our game. And to begin with, we're just going to work with UDK defaults, and we're going to build a UT game level, which is a basic Unreal Tournament level, which is going to be a full level. It's going to be fully explorable. It's going to have enemies. It's going to have hazards. It's going to have all the cool stuff that we want to play with within a level. And then we're also going to take that level and we're going to create a deathmatch, a team deathmatch, and a capture the flag out of that. After we get done doing that, we'll learn how to do other stuff. We'll probably start playing with landscapes and things of that nature, but we're not going to need the sky dome or the stuff that we have in here. We'll start with a blank level because our first map is going to be all indoors. We're going to try to keep it simple to begin with, and we're going to be using basic pre-bundled, it came with UDK content. And then when we start getting into other things, then we will start bringing in custom content and worrying about custom map types, custom map classes, custom characters, and things of that as we get a little bit further down the road. But to begin with, we're going to keep it simple. We're going to use default UDK content, and we're going to build a UT, an Unreal Tournament level, a deathmatch, a team deathmatch, and a capture the flag. All right? So that's it for right now. We're going to go ahead and call that good on episode 1. Please don't forget to check the links in the description below for the Disabled American Veterans and the Wounded Warriors Project. Please help us support our veterans. If you like the video, then hit the like button, subscribe, and share. Tell your friends and family to hit the like button, subscribe, and share. Please don't forget to leave me a comment. All comments are always welcome, good, bad, or somewhere in between. Thank you very much for watching. I greatly, greatly appreciate your support. It means the world to me. And until next time, this is Brian Bad Hippie Jackson saying peace, love, clean underwear, and happy gaming.